First Indian Prime Minister to visit Warsaw in 45 years. Prime Minister Modi's next stop, Ukraine. Prime Minister to meet Ukrainian President Zelensky. Decoding Prime Minister's historic visit. India Today live from Kyiv.
Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast that comes to you from Kiev in Ukraine. I'm Gaurav Sawant. This is a war-torn country, but with hope, it's waiting for the Indian Prime Minister's arrival to Kiev. The first ever by an Indian Prime Minister and the first ever in midst of war. A war that's now taken a very dramatic turn with Ukraine's big and audacious attack into the Kursk territory of Russia. Russia, on the other hand, has intensified its operations in the Donetsk region. And in midst of this intensifying conflict, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived on a 3-day two-nation tour. He's landed in Warsaw. He would be interacting with the leadership of Poland. Poland becomes extremely crucial because Poland is a key partner of Ukraine. The Prime Minister on the 8th of July was in Russia, in Moscow. He'd interacted extensively with the Russian President Vladimir Putin. The two heads of state and government had discussed certain ideas. Now, some of those ideas will be discussed with the leadership here in Ukraine. And Ukraine is waiting to hear those concrete proposals to peace in midst of an intensifying war. Ukraine has made one thing very clear. Peace has to be just, fair, and not on Russia's terms. Because Ukraine says all these soldiers who've made the supreme sacrifice of their lives in the past 900 days and counting, these sacrifices cannot go in vain. Take a look at the Prime Minister's visit to Poland and the preparations that are in place here in Ukraine.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has embarked on his 2-day visit to Poland. He is the first Indian Prime Minister in 45 years to visit the Central European nation. The visit coincides with the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between Warsaw and New Delhi.
I think it's a very exciting visit and an important one symbolically as well as practically. This excitement is there thanks to Prime Minister Modi's international stature, his profile, and the excitement that Prime Minister Modi has chosen to come to Poland and to, break this nearly half a century gap.
After receiving a grand welcome in Warsaw, Prime Minister Modi honoured the memory of Jam Sahib, the erstwhile Maharaja of Gujarat's Jamnagar, who was often referred to as the Good Maharaja for his humanitarian deeds during World War II. He also paid his tributes at the monument to the Battle of Monte Cassino and Kolhapur Memorial. Prime Minister Modi will hold bilateral talks with Polish President and Prime Minister.
Prime Minister Modi, if he comes to Poland, he will see that we talk a lot about Vikas and Pragati in Poland also. So Takaniki first, then we of course will talk about security, so Suraksha will also be high on the agenda given the situation in Europe and global tension that we are observing. That's also something that Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Tusk will be discussing.
Bardzo ważna jest to dla nas wizyta, bo
The visit of Prime Minister Modi is of great significance to Poland and the region. We see outstanding examples such as Infosys, which employs over 3,000 people in the region, and more than 200 Indian MSMEs actively engaged in various businesses here. Numerous business delegations from Poland and the region travel to India, and Poland views India as a great partner for business and potential collaborations.
Biznes tutaj jest obecny.
Prime Minister Modi will leave for Ukraine on Friday. This will be the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Ukraine after establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries in 1992. He will spend around 7 hours in Ukraine and hold discussions with President Volodymyr Zelensky.
This visit of Prime Minister Modi in this important time will send a powerful signal to the global community that India stands out for peace, for dialogue, for negotiations, and also for a UN Charter and sovereignty and territorial integrity. And of course, at the moment, there are diplomatic efforts to end this conflict, to end the war.
Prime Minister's engagements in Kyiv will touch upon a range of aspects of bilateral ties. Prime Minister Modi will also interact with the Indian community, including students, during his brief visit to the nation that is fighting invasion by Russia. With Gaurav Sawant in Kyiv, Ukraine, Bureau Report, India Today.
In the heart of Kiev, this is the Krishyatika area. This is the center, the nerve center of Kiev. And when I came here 2 years ago, when the war hadn't started, you'd see this place blooming with flowers, a lot of flowers here. 2 years down the line, those flowers have been replaced by not hundreds and hundreds, but thousands and thousands of flags of the brave Ukrainians who've made the supreme sacrifice of their lives fighting for honor, fighting for their country. And I want you to, for a moment, take a look at this place. This is where there are photographs of every Ukrainian soldier, a flag in the honor of every Ukrainian soldier who's made the supreme sacrifice of their lives fighting against the Russian forces. Their date of birth and the day they made the supreme sacrifice of their lives. Like in this case, this soldier who's been awarded a medal, born in 1996, killed in action on 30/8/2022. Watch here. Letters from daughters to their fathers, letters from young widows to their husband, letters from wives to their husbands, letters from mothers to their sons killed in combat. And this is the most traumatic part of this Russia's war on Ukraine, the loss of lives. More than the loss of territory, it's the loss of lives that hurts. This war has entered a very critical phase. You have Ukrainian forces that have launched a very audacious counterattack into Russia. For the first time in over 910 days of this conflict, Ukrainian forces, more than a brigade plus, with Bradley and Stryker armored fighting vehicles provided by the United States, with weapons and systems provided by Germany and other NATO forces, they've entered Kursk and they've taken control, by some accounts, of over 1,000 square kilometers of Russian territory. In 2 years plus of war, Russia had taken control of over 1,200 kilometers of Ukrainian territory. Ukraine's done a counterattack in just about these past 12 to 15 days. But this too has led to loss of many, many more lives. In midst of all of this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is arriving here in Ukraine. Will Prime Minister Narendra Modi, after his 8th July visit to Russia, his interaction with President Putin, and now with his interaction on the 23rd of August with President Volodymyr Zelensky, be in a position to talk about a roadmap to peace? A peace that Ukraine says must come with honor, a peace that should be just and fair, because these lives, these braves who've made the supreme sacrifice of their lives, their fathers, their brothers, their children, they come every other day here to pay their respects, to pay their tributes to these soldiers who will perhaps rise once again for their country, for their honor. But for Ukraine, this terrible, terrible war, it continues. A war that continues to claim young soldiers every day, that continues to claim lives every day. And in this scenario, Ukraine wants peace, but a peace where these supreme sacrifices would not be in vain. Gaurav Sawant in Kiev, Ukraine, for India Today. It is with bated breath that Ukraine waits for the Indian Prime Minister. Indologists here, those who've studied India for decades, who've studied India's rich cultural past, our heritage, our history, and India's adherence to rules-based order. They are waiting for the Prime Minister's message to President Zelensky and to the people of Ukraine, because they are extremely hopeful that India's rich cultural past of being a peacemaker, of following rules-based order, of being a non-aligned country, of course now being a multi-aligned country, will play and pay rich dividends and play a critical role in the road to peace. And not just peace, but also reconstruction. I spoke to Indologists at the Ukraine University, those who've studied Indian history and culture for decades. Let's listen in to their hope and aspirations from the Prime Minister's visit, not just ushering in the path of peace, but also reconstruction of Ukraine. So the countdown has begun for Prime Minister Narendra Modi's arrival here in Kiev, Ukraine. And with me are two very well-respected Indologists here in Kiev, both who've studied India at length. And it is my proud privilege to introduce Dr. Yulia Phil. Dr. Yulia Phil is an Indologist at the Institute of Oriental Studies at the National Academy of Science. Ma'am, welcome on the show. Also with me, my proud privilege to introduce Dr. Olena Bordalowska, who's an Indologist at the prestigious Taras Shevchenkov National University here in Kiev. And Dr. Yulia, let me begin by asking you your expectations of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Ukraine.
Oh, thank you very much for this opportunity to deliver my message to Indians, and really many expectations. And first of all, I would like Mr. Narendra Modi to see here the reality in Kiev, to empathically feel the Ukrainian point of view, to understand a little bit, to feel that it's not the conflict we saw before, because it's the war which is waged for killing people, for killing us Ukrainians, and the diplomacy cannot be the very efficient and sensible way to solve the war, to stop the war, because how can we negotiate with people who want to kill us? Yeah, and I hope I understand that India keeping neutrality in its foreign policy. I understand it, but also I would like dear Mr. Prime Minister of India to understand that this situation is a little bit different.
First of all, it's my biggest expectation because it will be the first ever visit of Prime Minister to Ukraine. We had two presidents of India here, but no foreign minister, not Prime Minister, they never visited Ukraine. That's why it's very important. Also, it is important because he will come during the wartime, as Dr. Yulia said, just to experience and to see who we are and what we are struggling for. It's very important. And third point is that he will come after Moscow visit. And if India really keeps neutrality, it was very much anticipated that he will come to Ukraine as well after Russia.
You know, as Indologists as people who speak the language. You speak Hindi so well. Are you likely to meet the Prime Minister? And if you do, what will that conversation be like? What are points in your mind?
मैं स्वागत करेंगे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री से. So I will welcome him to Ukraine, and if it will be any possibility, I would like to tell him how many people here in Ukraine like Indian culture, how many studies we have in Indology in different fields, in history, languages, translation, philosophy, yoga, Ayurveda, whatever, and how we understand Indian foreign policy also. And I would like to tell him that we want people in India to know more about Ukraine. Unfortunately, no one studies Ukrainian language in India till now. We have to do something with this, and we have to inform Indian people about us, about our culture, about our mentality, about our purposes in this war for independence from Russia. It's a lot of things to tell, but first of all, I would like him really to see and to feel our country, our peaceful actually nature of Ukrainian people, and our will to stop this war means to win this war, just to keep our independence. I would like to tell him that we can't stop fighting because there will be no Ukraine in this way. So that is our reason. But we don't want other people suffer throughout the world, because Ukraine is famous for her food security, for example. Ukraine was always a provider of food and many things to India as well. We want this relationship to be restored, developed, and we would like to find out another fields of this cooperation as well.
Will India-Ukraine relationship, in your appreciation, be taken to a new level, Dr. Yulia, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit? Is there more curiosity amongst Ukrainians to know more about India?
Yes, I see how big noise now in our media, in our blog sphere. Yeah, people are talking about the Modi visit everywhere, and I think this historical visit really make the interest of India larger in Ukraine, for sure.
India is already playing a very critical role here in Ukraine. A large number of soldiers have made the supreme sacrifice of their lives in the war for Ukraine's honor and independence. But a very large number of soldiers have also been injured in battle. Many injured in landmine blasts, losing their limbs above the knee, below the knee, losing their hands. And there is an Indian company that's playing a very critical role in making prosthetic limbs for these soldiers. Rehabilitation centers where those soldiers are being helped to stand up once again and be counted. And some of these soldiers, once they're ready not just to walk, they're raring to run, they're raring to rejoin this battle for the honor of Ukraine. I caught up with some of these soldiers and with the Indian company that's making those prosthetic limbs, not just in Ukraine, but also in India, all a part of Atmanirbhar Bharat, benefiting the world. With this prosthetic leg, are you able to perform all tasks? Like with this prosthetic leg, were you able to perform military tasks?
Almost. Yeah. It's like I can do like 100% what I can, but I think maybe 80%.
And how were you injured? I see this Ukrainian army insignia here. How were you injured in combat?
It was in Lugansk Oblast in 2019 year, and I go to mission on enemy territory. Made this mission, and after when we come back to base near enemy territory, I step on enemy mine.
In Ukraine, a large number of soldiers have lost not just their lives but also their limb in this conflict due to landmines, and India is playing a critical role in helping those Ukrainian soldiers once again not just stand on their feet but also run once again like earlier. And with me is Nagendra Parashar. Mr. Prasher is helping make those prosthetic limbs right here in Ukraine. Now the Jaipur foot, it was in big demand here in Ukraine, but you're manufacturing the prosthetic limb here itself.
Yes, we have 10 prosthetic centers in Ukraine, and where we provide the custom-made prosthetic solution. The full leg, because there are two types of injuries, and right now they are mostly soldiers, very young soldiers, very young, and they are boys and girls. So we make knee joints, adapters, prosthetic feet here in Ukraine.
Okay. And since this conflict started, it's been 900 days and counting, 910 days plus of this war. What kind of injuries, are we getting, and what kind of demand are you getting from the Ukrainian forces and from soldiers?
So mostly they are landmine injuries. If it's a landmine, anti-personnel landmine, then the injury is of the below knee injury, and we can provide a process very fast. So it takes some time to heal, a month or three, and then mostly people cannot tell if the person has a prosthetic leg or not.
But this is just a very small part of India's efforts in helping the reconstruction of Ukraine, or helping Ukraine stand up on its feet once again. The real reconstruction will begin where a lot of Indian assistance is being talked about from agriculture, because a lot of Ukrainian manpower has been used in conflict. A lot of them have made the supreme sacrifice of their lives, and a lot of them are too injured to work in those agricultural fields or in the industries or in infrastructure to help rebuild Ukraine. So from unskilled labor to skilled labor to IT giants, in every which way Indian assistance is being sought. And perhaps the road ahead is all about not just peace but also reconstruction of Ukraine. We will continue to report from Ground Zero, but that is all I have for you on this India Today special broadcast from Kiev. Many thanks for watching. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.
To say hello, I'm so fly. You took a nosedive. Careful when you play on my level. For you it's so. Hey, hello.
Motorola Razr 50 Ultra. Flip the script.
Hello, Moto.
Get the pulse of the nation with the biggest people's verdict after elections. Mood of the nation. What is your forecast for the economy in the next 6 months? Are you satisfied with the new income tax changes in Budget 2024?